Thanks for staying with us. Sierra Leone has reportedly rejected a request from the Economic Community of West African States to allow the temporary relocation of former President Ernest Bai Koroma to Nigeria as earlier planned today. The regional bloc had asked Sierra Leone to drop charges against Koroma and allow him to retain his full entitlement as a former president and relocate him to Nigeria. Former President Koroma was expected in Nigeria to begin a political asylum signed off by the host country and brokered by ECOWAS. The decision is sequel to an intervention by ECOWAS, which sent a high-powered delegation to Freetown December 23rd, according to a statement signed by ECOWAS President Omar Aleu Toure. Koroma is charged with 4 offenses, including treason for his alleged role in a failed coup attempt to topple the government of Julius Maada Bio on November 26th last year. Okay, joining us to take a look at Koroma's proposed relocation to Nigeria is former Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Nigeria's former Ambassador to Ethiopia, Ambassador Bulus Lolo. Very warm welcome, Your Excellency, to Newsnight. Now, tell us, ECOWAS seems to be proactive in brokering this peace so that it probably does not degenerate into another fratricidal conflict in Sierra Leone. What are your thoughts here?
Good evening, Chris, and compliments of the season to you. And your question as to my views on what is happening in Sierra Leone. First, it is unfortunate that West Africa is going through this phase once more, whereby the political landscape is not stable in places where you think and hope and would wish that things have settled down, as in Sierra Leone. 3 or so decades ago, we remember the crisis that engulfed the country. And now here we are in a civil dispensation, having to deal again with political crisis. Koroma, being a former president in Sierra Leone, of course, still represents a symbol in Sierra Leone, given that the presidency is not necessarily tied to individuals. A former president of any country, whatever affects that person will affect the image of the country. And in this case, Koroma was president not long ago. And if he is alleged to have had a part in an attempt to topple another government, naturally, the government in place will view things very seriously, again, because stability of the state is always a key consideration in the mind of any administration in office. But that ECOWAS stepped in, it's the right step in the right direction, in my view, given that the regional bloc tried its hands in the events in Niger, came out with, I don't want to say, but sort of bloody nose, and is still not yet out of the woods, with things unclear in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, and then now Sierra Leone. The case of Sierra Leone is one that must be handled with extreme, and I put an accent on the word extreme care, because it only means that the country can tip over. Now, it will require great diplomacy, great tact, and sensitivity and sensibility in navigating the murky waters that surround the allegations. So whatever needs to be done, first is to maintain peace in the country. 2, not to rush to judgment. 3, base whatever action on concrete, incontrovertible evidence. And this is what I hope the authorities in Freetown will grant to President Koroma and others who are alleged to have had a part in the coup, attempted coup.
Okay. Ambassador, the latest report we're hearing from Freetown is that the Bill government has reneged on, the agreements to allow Koroma to go on asylum in Nigeria and may have procured a court injunction so that Koroma faces a trial. What are the implications of this?
Well, most countries frown on outsiders, dabbling into their internal affairs, and especially if you couch it or give it the garb of rule of law. Now, if the government of Sierra Leone has gone to court and secured an injunction against the movement of the former president, the question to ask is, why are they at the last minute changing their minds? Does it have to do with an attempt to maximize the humiliation they want to bring on him? Bad enough that as a former president, he's been accused of having a hand or masterminding, as the case is, an attempt to topple a successor government. And then the other thing, of course, is when you hear a blind person inviting another to a shooting contest, it is said that blind person has stepped on a stone. Could it be that the president in Sierra Leone has stepped on a big stone that he believes will serve his course? But my view is this should be handled with utmost care. It should be handled with utmost care because we must not send, and Sierra Leone for that matter should not be the one to send the wrong signal to others in the sub-region. I'm not saying that anyone is above the law, no. If an understanding had been reached and the government was amenable to it for President Koroma to temporarily relocate to Nigeria, I don't see what the government will suffer if they allow this to go through. Charles Taylor, we remember, in Liberia, also came to Nigeria on asylum. And things continued in Liberia then without any hitch. So again, letting him go, unless they fear that by letting him go, and we don't know the evidence that they may have, but whatever the evidence may be, sometimes you must strike a balance between expedience and necessity. So here, we do not know. I can't say. I'm not anywhere close to the facts. So whatever I express are just my personal views. But I think that it will be a wise decision for the government to go back to that agreement they had reached and allow Koroma to exit the country with dignity.
Well, recently, or not too long ago, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu assumed chairmanship of, the ECOWAS heads of states and the rest. What kind of influence do you think it can bring to bear on President Bill for a change of heart? Or should ECOWAS use its standing force to maintain peace, law, and order and avoid a complete political breakdown in Sierra Leone?
Well, the latter part of your question is what I'm going to start with. Sierra Leone does not have the capacity, and I'm not, looking down on that government, but they do not have the capacity to single-handedly manage the political fallout of any major crisis in that country. I say this drawing from the events of the early 90s when the country almost broke apart. Now, the position of Nigeria and President Tinubu, for that matter, as the current chair of ECOWAS. Nigeria, as you know, is the heart of ECOWAS. We are placed, whether we like it or not, and ought to be the leader of the bloc in West Africa. And whoever is Nigeria's president should at all times be aware of this burden of responsibility to lead and guide the sub-region. Now, whether there is any leverage at all that President Tinubu can use to persuade President Bio to allow Koroma to exit. In diplomacy, we use back channels. There are official and back channels that can be used. And this is where personal diplomacy will also come to play. But deploying any force at this time by ECOWAS without an outcome being pronounced in Sierra Leone would be premature, in my view, would somehow be preemptive, and may complicate things the more. We saw what happened in Niger. We've seen what has followed between Mali and Burkina Faso. Possibly Guinea may join, and Niger. So we must not escalate the crisis in the sub-region. We have to go use all the tact available to us, deploy our preventive tools to maintain peace and stability. And this is the only way I believe that we will make a headway. And equally too, to improve across the board on our governance practices. Governance for its own good, governance for the people, and not governance by way of getting accolades from outside. No, let us govern ourselves for our own good. And I hope that this phase in Sierra Leone will come and go. The country will survive, the country will remain stable, and the country will remain united. But as to how the coup attempt will be handled, if it is over-politicized, there will be reprisals. Whether now or in the future, it will surely come. But at the end of the day, let it be that stability, the peace and well-being of the ordinary citizens of Sierra Leone will trump every other interest, whether personal or political.
No better way, Your Excellency, Ambassador Bulus Lolo, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and former Ambassador to Ethiopia, to end this chat about the brewing political crisis in Sierra Leone. Thanks very warmly for being on News.